Whenever we're talking about efficient defense, it's important to understand that all movement can be broken down into three planes of motion. There's forwards and backwards movement, sometimes called the sagittal plane. There's side-to-side movement, sometimes called the frontal plane. And there's rotational movement, sometimes called the transverse plane. And there are three muscle actions: acceleration, deceleration, and isometric stabilization. At a very high level, defense is played, obviously using all three muscle actions and all three planes of motion. And why would we make this part of the introduction in terms of the movement part of defense? It's critical to understand that progressions, correct progressions, should be followed. We need to go from a stable base using just one or two planes of motion and one or two muscle actions, and eventually progress to an unstable base using multiple planes and multiple muscle actions. So in the early stages of our drills and skills, on the surface, the drills will seem very, very simple. However, this is necessary to correctly progress the athlete. If that is our foundation, what is our framework? What type of drills and skills we put on top of that foundation? One of the easiest ways to understand the framework is by looking at the acronym TANCS, T-A-N-C-S. A well-rounded collection of movement drills for defense will involve technique, acceleration, agility, neuromuscular training, core, cardiorespiratory condition, stabilization, and strength. Now, even though we're only going to be covering 5 or 6 drills for this defensive workout for speed, agility, quickness, again, it's important that within the context of a very, very safe progression, athletes have full medical clearance and they correctly follow those progressions before attempting some of the harder, more difficult drills. So one final thing we have to cover before we actually get started with the drills and skills is the ideal positioning that the body needs to be in for great movement and particularly for great defense. And what we want to be able to do is break the body down from the feet, on through the knees, on through the lumbo-pelvic hip complex. Now we're going to get Ryan in a defensive stance right now, so feet just a little bit wider apart, knees bent, in a comfortable athletic position. Anytime the body is moving, particularly on defense, we want to ensure that the feet, unless there are dramatic drop steps, we want to make sure that the feet are parallel and are aligned forward. You see some athletes on defense attempt to externally rotate their feet and sometimes internally rotate their feet. This can be both dangerous and inefficient. In the same manner, as we work our way up from the knees, from the feet to the knees, we see some athletes who have a tendency to adduct their knees in, or bow leg and abduct their knees out. Very, very efficient movement is parallel feet, parallel knees. But one of the biggest keys is what's going on in the lumbo-pelvic hip complex region, basically the hips. Now this is a critical area. There are two extremes that the hips can be in. One is called an anterior pelvic tilt, the other is called a posterior pelvic tilt. If the body is in one of these two positions, any movement that's generated from the upper body when an individual runs and that energy is transferred to the lower body, or from the lower body to the upper body, there is a very, very poor transition of energy. Another way of looking at it is you have an energy leak. The body will not move efficiently. And this is the same for when an individual is running, to when they're performing speed, agility, quickness drills, to when they're trying to play defense in the game of basketball. So it's very, very important to have what's called neutral hips, halfway between an anterior tilt and a posterior tilt. Well, what do these two incorrect positions look like, and what does the correct halfway position look like? We're going to take Ryan from a side view here and have him get into a defensive stance, so knees bent in a nice athletic position, chest up, and we're going to have him exaggerate an anterior pelvic tilt. So we're going to really have him curve the back. Excellent. So this is an incorrect position. This is one extreme, an anterior pelvic tilt. Next, we're going to ask him to go into what's called a posterior pelvic tilt, where the back goes into kyphosis. So it rounds the hips, the shoulders fall forward, and the hips are pushed in. This position, sometimes called the Pee Wee Herman position, is also incorrect. The correct position is halfway between an anterior pelvic tilt and a posterior pelvic tilt. It's a nice athletic position where you've got a nice straight line right the way through the back and right the way through the hips. The final thing that any athlete needs to remember when playing defense or when being involved in any speed, agility, quickness drills that are going to help improve defense is having a tight core, having an activated core. And one way to think about doing this is actually taking an imaginary piece of string, from Brian's back all the way through to his belly button, his umbilicus, and pulling on that string and tightening that core. We want to make sure we have a nice tight core. We want to make sure our spines and our hips are in neutral position. We want to make sure our knees are aligned and our feet are aligned. Excellent. The final thing to talk about is correct foot strike. It's a common myth that an athlete should stay on his or her toes to react very, very quickly. The sweet spot for any part of the foot strike, whether you're playing defense or involved in speed, agility, quickness drills to improve defense, the sweet spot of the foot strike should be right on the balls of the feet. When you have a shoe, and this is a fairly new shoe, but when you have a shoe that's been worn a little while and you have a very efficient athlete who's been wearing that shoe, you'll typically see this part of the foot more worn versus any other parts of the feet. The most power that can be generated through the body is through this area. What propels the body forward is basically called ground reaction force. It's based on the principle that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And so we want to be able to generate as much force through the body and through the balls of the feet as possible. So correct foot strike is very, very important for each one of our drills. So the first part of this drill is called a reverse lie down. A couple of important reasons why we're doing this. We're actually going to start out with you on your stomach facing the opposite direction, and it's going to force you to actually accelerate from a knees bent crouch position. It's actually going to help you to slowly come out of the pocket from knees bent and slowly begin to raise your body up. The second thing we're doing is making sure that we plant laterally on that explosion. So much great defense in basketball is obviously based on lateral movement and lateral explosion. So certainly working on defense, the essence of functional training is if you want to jump higher, you practice jumping. You want to play great defense, you practice defense. But there are also some additional agility drills and some acceleration drills to help kind of maximize your development. And this reverse lie down is one of them. But we're going to make it as basketball specific as possible, because after this reverse lie down, I want you to accelerate all the way through to the 13 marker. Okay. I want you to rapidly decelerate as if you're closing out an opponent, as if you have a shooter all the way over on the 3-point line, but this shooter is also a great slasher. So you can't close out just to get a run by and a hand in their face. You have to close out in a way that can fully slow your momentum, that you can get a hand in their face if necessary, but also prevent them from driving right by you. Okay. So what's the number one rule of deceleration? Always drop your hips. Number 2 rule, shorten your strides. You see a lot of injuries occurring in the game of basketball when someone tries to decelerate and they overstride when they're decelerating versus taking short, choppy steps. So we want to make sure that when we close out, we lower our hips, we take short, choppy strides, and we actually want to throw our momentum back from our upper body. Okay. So it's almost like putting an extra set of brakes on the wheels. So as you're moving forward, if you're able to throw your momentum back as you close out the individual and get to a point where you time that closeout. So again, if necessary, you can get a hand in their face, but if they were to drive by you, if they're a great slasher, you're able to recover. Does that make sense? Yeah. Let's see what it looks like. Know that if you don't get to the second cone soon enough, someone's going to stick a 3 right in your grill that's going to win the game for the team. So you have to balance getting to that second cone and that closeout as quickly as possible, but not so much that you couldn't initially right away react. Yeah, if they literally blow by you, you want to be able to react. And your
second cone as fast as I can, but under control.
Under control. Your closeouts were technically correct, but just not quick enough. Okay. Not for your type of athlete, you know, which is a stellar athlete, right? So, ready, set, go. Excellent, much better. That was good. Obviously, everything we do for the right, we'd want to do for the left. So if this were a full workout, our next drill will be off the left foot. Okay, so on this next drill, we want the exact same acceleration right out of the pocket. First 3 steps sound like a drum machine, bam, bam, bam. When you hit the first cone, you're going to rapidly decelerate. You're going to do a defensive closeout, And again, the 3 rules of closeout: drop the hips, short choppy strides, and reverse the upper body momentum. And then you're going to hit an icky shuffle. And what we're doing here now, we're going to be moving in 2 planes of motion in this ladder. Forwards and side-to-side motion, okay? Going to start off exploding off of your right leg, so you're going to turn towards me when you explode. Ready, set, go! Excellent. Okay, this time now we're going to switch the drill. Same explosion out of the pocket. First 3 steps are the most important. You're going to explode off your left leg this time.
Gotcha.
Rapidly decelerate on a closeout. 3 closeout techniques. Drop the hips, short choppy strides, reverse the upper body momentum. And now we're going to hit 3 planes of motion on the ladder. So it's like the icky shuffle, the 1, 2, 3s, except each time we're going to get a kickback and rotation. 1 in, kickback, rotation. 1 in, kickback, rotation.
Okay.
Perfect. Picture perfect. Picture perfect. That's it. That's it. That's the pattern.
Gotcha.
Let's see what it looks like. Off the left leg. Ready, set, go! Good job. Missed 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, no big deal. We'll do it again. Ready, set, go! Excellent. So here we've obviously got 3 plyometric hurdles, Ryan. Our goal for plyometrics is neuromuscular efficiency. Our goal is power. Obviously, you combine power and technique, you've got a much better defensive player. So our goal in using these plyometric hurdles is to generate as much force through the balls of our feet. But in between these hurdles, I want you to treat the ground like the surface of the sun. So as soon as you touch and explode, you jump. As soon as you touch and explode on the floor, you jump, okay? I want the knees to come up to the chest in between hurdles, and our goal is maximum height. Even though this is a fairly high height, for your caliber of athlete, should be able to handle this just fine. But for most, this will be a fairly high hurdle height. But I don't want you to use this as your target. I want you to go as high as you can between all 3 hurdles. But on the first drill, I actually want to slow things down for our viewers and have you land and just pause. Okay, you're going to land softly, just pause, so I can demonstrate, we can explain how the feet, the knees, and the hips should be aligned. Okay, let's see you step and go over the first hurdle. Okay, let's do over. That's all right. Not used to pausing. Not used to pause in between. Not an easy thing to do. So we're going to have you go over the first hurdle and then pause. Excellent. Okay, so if we look at Ryan's, and I'm going to have you do this one more time. Okay, look at your feet. And do you see the way your knees were kind of adducted in?
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to literally go over the first hurdle, and this is me without a warm-up. As my mic will fly all over the place. Land softly, knees aligned, feet aligned, hips aligned, okay? Good. So we have a good solid landing, softly on the balls of the feet. Feet are aligned, knees are aligned, hips in a neutral position. So this is going to be our landing mechanics, but obviously Ryan's not going to spend so much time on the ground. As soon as he touches, he's going to explode to the next hurdle.
So no pause in between.
No pause in between. As soon as you hit that last hurdle, I'm going to allow you just to run forward slightly, okay? Allow your momentum just to carry you forward. All right, Ryan, so now we're going to make things very interesting. Here's what we want. We want the same power generated. We want the same very quick transition, sometimes called amortization phase, to be just as explosive between the hurdles. And as soon as you hit the last hurdle, I want you to explode backwards with a run back, get back to the line, 3 more hurdles, explode backwards in the other direction, and come back to the starting spot.
Okay, so back around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're getting a little bit more functional, a little bit more specific to defense. Explode, explode back. When we run backwards, it's the same technique that we use for a closeout. The rules are drop the hips, short, choppy steps. Let's see what it looks like.
Back pedal full speed back.
Back pedal full speed back. As soon as you get behind the line, straight into it again. 1, 2, 3, explode back, left side. Explode. Good. Way to drop the hips. Nice job. Short, choppy steps, drop the hips. Excellent job. Very nice job. So now we're going to be generating neuromuscular efficiency, some power in 2 different planes of motion. 2 forward high jumps, and then 10 very, very crisp, sharp lateral jumps. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Excellent job. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Explode back. Move, 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 move. Good job. Now get up. Get off your feet. Excellent. 6 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Excellent job. Very nice job. One of the great things about this drill is it involves a number of components that you see in any game defensively. It forces you to generate an extreme amount of power laterally. It forces you to show great agility in terms of the ability to accelerate, decelerate, stabilize, and move in another direction, basically the definition of agility. It forces you to work very, very hard, so it's tough on your cardiorespiratory conditioning, your endurance, and most of all, it causes you to have to think while you're very, very fatigued. Also critical for great defensive play. So Ryan, this is one of our tougher exercises. We're looking at, this one's called hurdle agility. And what we're looking at is a number of different instructions. You're going to start out in rapid defensive foot fire. As soon as you hear the instruction right, you're going to slide to your right, physically touch the disc, come back to the position, rapid foot fire. Whenever you hear left, you have to laterally jump over the hurdle. Okay, I want some lateral power generated. Slide over, hit the left disc, slide on back, foot fire here. Whenever you hear sky, I want you to jump as high as you can, as quickly as you can, and then keep foot firing. Whenever you hear ground, touch ground, both hands, and rapid foot fire. Okay. Last instruction, whenever you hear hurdle, continuous jumps until you hear otherwise.
Gotcha.
Now, this one's tough for a number of reasons. It's not only working neuromuscular power, and it's not only working agility, it's hitting your cardiorespiratory conditioning, some endurance involved, and also getting you to think while you're fatigued. Okay, get in position. Okay, just a second. One important thing to remember, and for the viewers of this DVD, is that rest ratios when you're working speed, agility, quickness are very, very important. Typically, to maximize power, you're in the ATP-CP system, adenosine triphosphate, creatine phosphate, sometimes called the phosphagen system. Now, this energy system typically requires a 1:5 to 1:12 rest ratio for full recovery. But we're not giving Ryan a full chance to recover here as we go from drill to drill to drill. But just know that to maximize speed, agility, quickness, we want full recovery. However, this drill can also be used as a great conditioning tool. We're combining some conditioning, endurance, and explosive power training. All right, get ready, Ryan, and foot fire. Floor. floor, floor, sky, sky, right, good, right, sky, floor, hurdle, left, floor, sky, right. Excellent, good. Woo! So this drill is called diamonds. Part A, part B. The first part is we're only ever going to be working 4 discs at a time. The instructions you can hear are forward, where you're going to rapidly move forward, touch the disc, get back to your home base, which is a foot fire, left, as rapidly as possible, right, sliding, as rapidly as possible, defensive slide back, back to foot fire, back, drop step, slide, come back to position, foot fire. So you can go forwards, back, right, left. If you ever hear the command, turn, you get to do a 180, and now you're working this one left, this one right, this one forward, this one back.
Alright, so the back, the drop step.
Yes.
And am I touching every cone with the hand?
Every cone with a hand.
Gotcha.
Yep. I want to make sure defensively you're low enough to touch every cone with a hand. Because when you're tired, what do athletes tend to do? Stand up. Okay. So the fact you're touching these discs with a hand means you've got to be low enough in your defensive stance to touch every disc.
So every time I'm back here, I'm foot firing.
You're foot firing. So it's very, very tough. Now this is going to be rapid fire. You're going to hear left, right, back, forward, back, left, right, turn. And when you turn, obviously, now you've got 2 new lefts and rights into play.
Gotcha.
So this is really going to cause you to, force you to have to think very, very quickly, literally on your feet.
That's a hash mark every time.
Yes. Yeah. That's roughly your middle.
Let's do it.
All right. Get into a defensive stance. Foot fire and begin. Good, good. Let's move, let's move, let's move. Left. Let's move. Good. Don't cross those feet. Right. Excellent. Left. Excellent. Forward. Very good. Forward. Let's move, Ryan. Forward. Very good. Left. Left. Back. Drop step. And time. Recover. We'll go again. Nice job. Get in the defensive stance, Ryan. And chop the feet. Quick feet. Good. Left. Excellent. Left. Good. Left. Front. Front. Right. Back. Good. Turn. Left. Turn. Right. Right. Turn. Front. And time. Nice job. That's a toughie. Part B of this is called opposites. It's one of the most difficult drills you can do defensively because it really forces you to think when you're in a very fatigued state. Every instruction that we give, the athlete is actually going to be doing the opposite. Every time we say front, he's got to move back. Every time we say left, he's got to move right. Every time he says right, we've got to move left. So it really causes you to think and react very, very quickly at a point of maximum fatigue while you're infusing some great agility and some great power movement. What's going to make this more challenging, I'm going to throw as much at you as I can mentally. So in addition to your forwards and back, left and right, turn, obviously you're just going to turn, okay? That's the only command that's going to stay the same. But I'm going to add to, whenever I say sky, I want you to hit the ground. Whenever I say ground, I want you to sky.
So now we're adding that, we're adding sky and ground to this as well.
Absolutely, yep. The only command that stays the same is your turn. All right, foot fly and begin. Right. Excellent. Very good. Right. Very good. Left. Very good. Left. Sky. Good. Sky. Ground. Good. Ground. Forwards. Excellent. And back. Yeah, boy. Good. Left. Turn. Left. And time. Excellent job.